it's just crazy to like think back where I was a year ago and now. Oh, and I'm only like a couple $1,000s away from replacing my full-time income that I was making at my full-time job. That was one of my goals for this year that I was just totally convinced at the beginning of the year I was not going to be able to do.
Hello, welcome. Today I am here with Tiffany, fellow brand photographer who went through my Flourish Mastermind. This is really exciting for me because I've watched your transformation just over the last year since we met and seeing you like come out of your shell, step a little more into the spotlight and just really like crush it with your business like you're doing it. And you have a new podcast, which I want to talk about too. But why don't you tell us a little bit about like where you're from? Tell us a little bit about your journey and what like inspired you to focus on brand photography?
So I'm in Missouri, but I also do New York City. I also cover that. I actually just got back in October from some New York shoots and then Southern California. So I travel nationwide, but based in Missouri. So I started out doing like all types of photography because I knew that I was passionate about photography and I knew I wanted to work for myself from like a very young age. And I loved putting together videos. I loved taking photos. Like when I was in middle school and sixth grade, when I started my business, I did all the things. I did senior photos, maternity, weddings, but I wasn't feeling like super passionate about those things. I was passionate about photography, passionate about videography, not passionate. I dreaded going to family sessions. I dreaded going to weddings. So I discovered that personal branding for businesses or just business photo shoots in general were a thing. It's like I knew that, but I didn't know like the term for it. And so there was this business who she owned a boutique and she was like one of the first like business people I took photos of. And after that session, I was like, OMG, this is what I want to start doing. So, anyways, that was in 2021. I made a whole new website. I made a whole new social media page for branding, aside from like my old stuff that I was kind of still posting about like weddings and elopements on. I just made it totally separate.
I can so relate. It's like that first branding shoot you do with a business owner. It's like so different than any other style of photography because I did it all too. And I thought for sure I was going to do weddings my whole life.
Only way you can make money.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It's like I want to do this full time and this is how you do it. But I remember my first shoot too. It's so special, your first brand shoot.
Yeah.
So how would you describe your like photography style in 3 words or however you want to take this question, your experience? Yeah.
Um, well, I guess in 3 words, I would say true to color, fun, and natural. I like I like it to look a little bit more natural. Of course, some don't look natural if like we're doing something creative or whatever, but
Okay. And when you say natural, do you mean like the posing and vibe of the client?
yeah, like natural environment looking, even if it's like in a studio setting, like trying to make them look like they're actually naturally laughing, like it wasn't prompted or things like that.
Yeah, I feel like that is like the one of the biggest skills we can have as a photographer. It's like, how can we get someone to just relax and feel comfortable and laugh? And I know I feel like this is your zone of genius. You just are personable. You help people feel comfortable and be themselves.
I don't think it's anything I'm even thinking about, like, oh, let me try to do this or that. It's just kind of, I feel like I just create that environment. That's just something about my personality that I've kind of picked up on.
Yeah.
So,
Love it.
yeah.
It's your strength. Okay. So speaking of your personality, who are you outside of work? Any like fun facts about you? Who is Rose?
Okay, so this is Rose. Right now she has like a little neck brace on because she started plucking feathers. But this is always a hard question for me to answer because like photography, making videos and taking photos has just been a hobby and now my career just for years. And so it's always hard because like that's been such a huge passion in my life, not just kind of something I started doing and thought I could make money with. Like this is like full blown passion. So it's always kind of hard for me to answer this question, but I guess besides photography, I love to travel. I think about it multiple times a day, constantly looking up prices to like wherever. And then spending time with my animals. I enjoy that. And I'm a big homebody.
Tell us
Nothing
how many
crazy.
animals you have, because you hit the nail on the head. I think of when I think of Tiffany, I think of travel. I think of, and you've done so good about like manifesting some shoots
Mhm.
in different places now. And then I think about your all your animals and your love for animals. And that's who are your
Yeah.
animals that you have, or how many do you have?
So so I have Rose and then I have another little bird. His name is Ollie.
Ollie.
So two parrots. I have a rabbit. She's actually under my desk right now.
Nice.
And then I have three ducks and two geese. And one of the geese I rescued during a brand shoot at a local park.
What?
Um,
I don't think I
yeah,
knew that.
really? This was like back in April or something. We just had a single female goose, and this is a male goose. So they are like the goose I rescued from the park is like obsessed with our female goose. Like he, yeah, worships the ground she walks on. I don't know how to explain it other than that, but just like watching them, yeah, it's adorable.
Yeah, that is, I love seeing your animals on your stories.
Yeah.
So fun. So you started a podcast this year, and I'm so proud of you. And I remember when you, at the beginning of this year, you were like, one day I want to start a podcast. And you kept coming back to the idea. And I'm like, go for it. And you did. And it's going. So can you tell me about that and like your inspiration of why you wanted to start that?
So I really wanted to I really wanted to start it, um, because I found myself always having like these conversations with people that I thought would be like really inspiring for other people to hear. And I've been thinking about this for a few years now. I just never really thought I would actually start one. But there's all kinds of things I want to talk about and put out there. And I did record an episode just me the other day because there's like just this inspiring thing I've been thinking about lately. And it's about how I got those New York clients.
Hmm,
And I'm like, hey, this is kind of an inspiring story that I want to put out there.
I'd
And
love to hear that.
well, I can tell it if you want me to.
Yeah. Well, I no, let everybody wait because then everyone watching this will go have to listen to that episode of your podcast.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, eventually when it's up, give me the link and we'll put it in the caption of this. So,
Okay.
and I just know you, Tiffany. I remember when we got to meet in person at the Flourish retreat in San Diego, and I remember you telling me like, I hate small talk. You're like, I want to like have a deep conversation. I want to go in there and like really talk about stuff that matters, and I can relate to that. And so I know that was probably like a big inspiration for your podcast. Like you said, you wanted other people to hear these conversations that you're having. Um, and yeah, I'm just so proud of you.
Thank you.
So let's go into some advice for other brand photographers or just kind of like the behind the scenes of being a brand photographer. Is there anything you would tell your younger brand photographer self? Like if you could go back to that first session that you know now after doing dozens, if not, I don't know, hundreds of brand shoots now.
Um, there's a lot I would tell myself on the brand photography side and just like the photography in general side. Like I started out over editing, like all the contrast and all the filters and whatever.
Totally.
And like less is more in the editing world, I think,
Yeah.
especially if you're shooting businesses.
Yeah.
They don't want creative, okay, maybe they do, but they don't want like over creative edits with like clear
Like
filters and
majority of business owners, right? Like if we talk about
yeah,
majority, obviously there's always little exceptions and outliers, but like
yeah.
This is so good because I definitely did that too. Like my first
Yeah.
edit, it was just like weird filters. Just I would do different edits for every person, so I had no style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly what I would do. I would change up my editing like every single time, and now it's just consistent. I have one more that I would kind of tell people is to make sure to be prepared going into your session. I used to never do planning calls.
Uh,
Everything was either like, I guess, over email, or honestly, I don't remember what I used to do, but it wasn't planning calls. And that is a huge game changer because you're really getting on the same page as your client, what they want. You're going over the details of the day. It's just like, make sure to go in prepared and have clear conversations and clear communications with the client.
yes. That
It's
planning calls
huge.
everything because you really find out what the client wants. They get to ask questions, and I feel like they're gonna feel so much more like comfortable and confident with you after the call because they got
Yeah.
to talk and connect with you, right?
Yeah. They're not sitting there wondering, oh, what should I bring? Like the night before their session.
Right.
They're not
Right.
sitting there wondering, you know, I don't know. If your communication is good, they're not sitting there wondering things.
Yeah.
Everything's already lined out and they know it.
Yeah. Agreed, girl. Agreed. So what's a tool you're obsessed with right now, or like some kind of hack or something you want to share with photographers?
No, there's a lot of things, but Chat GPT is so helpful to get ideas from. And you're actually the one who showed me Chat GPT. I had no idea what it was till you told me about it. And obviously, like, you're not going to copy everything word for word, and you shouldn't. But it's so helpful for just bullet point ideas that you can kind of like play off of for blogs or posts or whatever. So that's like one of the top things for me right now that's so helpful because my strong point like isn't really like writing um writing or coming up with like really good writing points. So Chat GPT really helps with that.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that. I literally am using ChatGPT like almost every day right now, if not every day.
Really?
It saves us time so we can focus more on the things that move the needle in our business and, pouring more into our clients and taking care of ourselves. Speaking of taking care of yourself, what are your like, how do you overcome like creative blocks or burnout as a photographer? Because we all know, I mean, if you haven't been there yet, I feel like it's inevitable that eventually you experience some kind of burnout as a photographer. And I mean, my goal is that I don't want people to experience that. I've gone through it and it's not fun. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so before I joined your mastermind, which was the beginning of 2024. So that year before that, I went through a whole year of burnout. I was not aligned with who I really wanted my target audience to be. So I was constantly getting jobs that I didn't want to take. And I just for money. Like I was just booking them for money. I was just, they none of them were like ideal clients, none. And that is because of how I was like marketing myself too, in my messaging. And so after that, after I kind of came out of that year of burnout and right before I quit my full-time job, I got really aligned with like my messaging and who I wanted to serve. And I changed my whole website messaging. Changed how I started showing up on social media. Um, because I went from advertising more like commercial work to personal branding for women entrepreneurs and like feminine brands, like product based brands and stuff like that. Now I just avoid burnout by spacing out my shoots. I don't take on too many per week or per month. I space them out. Yeah, that's like the biggest thing I do is just I don't take on too many things that I don't want to do or who I usually don't serve, and I don't overbook myself.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you went there because it's easy to think, well, a shoot, a photo shoot's a photo shoot. But there's a difference. Like we know, like
Yeah.
when we work with a client, we're just like so excited about and they creatively inspire us. And we even the editing is fun. Like
Yeah.
versus like a job where like for me that was weddings. Like I liked weddings in the beginning, but then it started to feel like the burnout and I would dread editing, I would dread culling, I would dread everything about it. And it's like that's when you know it's like maybe this isn't in alignment with my like what I'm meant to be doing. And
Yeah, and if you're feeling that way, because that's exactly how I was feeling with everything there for a while. And yeah, weddings, I would start dreading it the month that the wedding was coming up. Like I started having so much anxiety and dread. So if you're like feeling that way, it's really time to find what you actually are excited to wake up and do. Um, what is that thing? Yeah.
well said, girl. Well said. Is there anything else for marketing other than like you got aligned with your clients, you changed your messaging, anything else, any other strategy that's made a difference for you and like to your transformation?
This is another thing that I started doing during the Flourish retreat. And that is like showing up on social media. Because before I was showing up on social media, like showing my face or even posting photos of myself or talking on my stories, I was only posting photos of like my work, so of my clients. The captions were just like emojis or, oh, here's the shoot from yesterday. Like nothing.
Just
I
a
didn't write.
one-liner with some
Yes, yes,
hashtags.
yeah. No
We've all
strategy to
done it,
it.
girl. We've all done it.
But yeah, I noticed a shift in clients and when I started posting photos of myself, showing up on my stories. And I'm someone who's like really introverted, like that is not easy for me and I'm not saying it's easy, but um and like I was even at first I didn't post like long captions or typed out captions because I was so uncomfortable doing it. Like that's how like reserved I am. I was embarrassed to type out captions, even if it didn't have to do with me, just photography in general.
Yeah.
Like I
Is
didn't
it
want to post
because
myself.
is it because you were like, what will people think when you say you're
Yeah,
okay.
I think it was a lot of just I was just so insecure. I didn't want people to judge me. I didn't want people to read this and be like, "Oh, this is stupid." After I did start practicing what I preach, about showing up as the face of your brand, I've had multiple people tell me that they saw my work and they want like they knew I was the person for them. Even if it's not right that now, they said
Yeah.
in the future, like when I am ready and I'm in a place, whatever they said.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I hear that all the time, and I've got that too, where you get a lead, and when you get a lead and someone's like, "I want to talk to you about booking brand photography," they already love you, and they already probably already
mhm,
want to book. And if it's just the pricing, it's like they're gonna put you on their vision board. They're gonna come back and book
mhm.
later. It
I've
happens.
had someone tell me that too. I'm gonna put you
Yeah,
on my vision board because I know I want to work with you at some point. And like I wasn't getting people telling me that before I actually started showing up as the face of my brand and like actually writing out captions that meant something.
you also, during the mastermind, I remember one of the first things we had, you joined the mastermind early. So we had a little one-on-one coaching before it even started. And I remember I encouraged you, like, I want you to get on stories and talk on stories because I loved talking to you. And I was like, I know other people would love to see your energy. And you did it. And that helped as well. Like, can you tell me about that? Like what was that like? How did you get yourself to do that when you hadn't been doing that before, at least not consistently?
I was mortified. That was like one of the most number one embarrassing things I felt like I could ever do. After the first time I did it, it was like ripping off a band-aid. Like,
Hmm.
okay, I did it, and honestly, it hasn't been a big deal ever since.
I'm so proud
Um,
of you because, and I would never like make you do anything. Of course, I encouraged you and I was hoping you would. And then when I saw you do it, I was like, yes.
yeah. Yeah,
You
and
know?
I'm glad that you did encourage it because it's not as bad as I was like hyping it up. to
Mhm.
be. And it's made a difference. People engage with those, sometimes even more than other stuff
Yeah.
that I post.
Yeah. So we have like one more question from one of our community members. And I'd love to ask that and then just get into like your transformation and flourish a little bit. So his name's Gabe, and Gabe said, do you have any steps to transition from other types of photography, like weddings, for example? Do you make a separate website, social media? I feel like you kind of answered this earlier, but is
Yeah,
there anything else?
I did kind of touch on it. And I would say that it depends if you're wanting to continue to do the other things. Like, if you don't care to continue to do the other things, like maybe just start posting about brand photography and kind of phase out the other stuff. But if you're wanting to, like, because there for a while, I was wanting to still do elopements and some weddings. And your messaging for weddings and elopements or seniors or whatever is going to
Yeah.
be totally different than trying to work with brands. So when I realized that, I was like, okay, I need to just make two separate things, two
Yeah.
separate everything, because your messaging is
Yeah.
just totally different. And one more thing I do want to say is that I've got hired before, like the person has told me they hired me because I specialized in personal branding, and the other people that they looked at did all the things and didn't really specialize in anything. So I will say, looking like you do specialize in one thing can really benefit you.
It's true that the messaging, if you are trying to do everything on one, it actually is harder sometimes if it's very different. Like if it's like weddings and branding, because each post is going to be, you're talking to someone different, right?
Yeah.
So it's, yeah. So
And the
I mean,
SEO for your website is going to be not as great because you have all kinds of different, like, this is just my opinion. I'm not a website expert, but like maybe the SEO for your website could be not as great as it could if you're just like talking about one thing.
yeah, you need
Not
to,
an expert. I
basically, you
don't
need
know.
to separate it at least on different like landing pages, at least.
Yeah.
You have to have a
Yeah.
different page where you're talking to brides and a different page where you're talking to branding. I think that's the answer. Or if you're like mixing for now because you're not sure if you want to do everything, like one post, you're talking just to the bride. The next post, this is just for the, like you have to
Yeah.
separate it. You can't talk to two people on one thing. It's just like that's where it
Yeah.
gets messy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with like before you joined Flourish. I don't know if you'd ever been in a mastermind, but did you have any hesitations about joining? And then why did you ultimately decide to make that commitment? Because it's a big commitment of like time and money and yeah. What was it for you?
My biggest hesitation always with anything is always money. I don't know why. It just always is. I know it's like that for a lot of people, but it was definitely money because I didn't have like the cash in my account. I put it on my credit card. It's like in my head I was determined, like, you are who I wanted to work with. I knew I needed this. I was it was mainly the hesitance was just mainly, am I sure I'm going to be able, like, is this for sure financially smart for me personally decision? And I knew it was, and it totally was. Like right off the bat, I realized, like right when I got into like the Flourish portal and after we had our first call, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, I am so happy I invested in this. And because I think on like our first call is when we came up with the uh my package names for my different like photo packages. Empowered, inspired,
Your subscription, what's that called?
the visionary subscription.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, visionary. And then I have like a smaller subscription called the dreamer subscription.
Yeah, and it
So
felt like aligned, and then you were able to sell them, which is so important. So I know people will relate to this, and I think what's unique about you is like you knew you did not want to go back to working your day job because you'd done that. You'd been a photographer and then you'd gone back to a day job because you needed, more financial security. And then you were at this point where you're like, no, like I know I'm meant to do this full time. And it's like you believed in yourself ultimately.
yeah. And well, and I've also just known. from just a young age, like I want to work for myself. So I would always get really this, I don't know the word, not antsy, but like unhappy, I guess, unhappy waking up every day, knowing I wasn't really doing what I wanted to be doing. During that year of burnout, I was totally happy, like working at this job. I thought, okay, I'm going to get in the finance field now because I'm so over photography and just there's no way I can make money just doing this. And
Yeah,
so I was like, okay, finance is the way to go. But still, eventually that feeling crept up on me. That has always crept up on me because I would go through phases of feeling consistent, be like, okay, I think I can handle this for the rest of my life. But then no, the feeling crept back in like, no, I know what I want to do with my life, and this is not it.
that's
So
literally, I can just relate. It's that feeling, that nudge you have inside of like, no, I know I can do this. Like, I know I can see myself as a successful photographer, even though I'm not there yet. It's like, I
yeah,
know this is not it, like this job. And I've been there too. So I love that you
yeah.
went for it. Can you share about like a breakthrough moment from your time in the mastermind and talk about the 10K month you had?
Yeah, I would say that was one breakthrough of like launching something and it actually, being successful. And yeah, the 10K month, that was the very first time I had ever, grossed anywhere near 10K. And in one month, I mean. And I'm only like, well, I don't know where I'm at now, but as of like October or something, I was only like a couple $1,000s away from replacing my full-time income that I was making at my full-time job.
Yes, girl.
Um,
That's in
and
October you were?
yeah, so I feel like at the end of the year I can totally be there because
Yeah.
it was like a couple thousand away. So that was one of my goals for this year that I was just totally convinced at the beginning of the year I was not going to be able to do.
This is
But it was still my
incredible.
goal. Yeah, so I'm really excited
Yay.
about that.
This is incredible. You're gonna hit it.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I know I will. Another one would just be like mindset. Like, I guess I never really realized, you don't think about, oh, mindset plays a huge factor in your success or your life or anything, but it really, really does. And I love that you go through a lot of mindset work and, um, talk a lot about shifting your mindset and money mindset. And that has really helped too.
Yeah. It really, it's like for me, that's what it is. It's like that's the secret. It's not a strategy. Like there's a million strategies out there. It's
Yeah.
how to actually like implement and get results from the strategy. It's like all the mindset work you do on a daily. And this is why, I mean, I've been in multiple masterminds myself and had coaches because you can tap into that, right? And it helps you stay in the mindset when you're in a community like that versus just trying to go through it on your own. Is there anything else with your mindset around pricing or money, anything specific that shifted during that your time in the mastermind?
Um, I think there was, and now it's been several months. I can't remember like what I used to think. I feel like what we went through in the mastermind, I just kind of like engraved in my head, and now I can't remember like
Love that you can't
what
remember your
it,
old mindset, which is perfect. Well, let me ask you this, compared to a year ago, if you think back to where you were a year ago, the end of 2023, has your pricing changed? Have you raised your prices successfully
Mhm.
against clients?
Yeah, yeah, I have raised my prices. And that's something else I don't remember what they used to be because they were constantly changing. I was constantly, sometimes I would lower them, sometimes I would hire them. Like it just depended what mood I was in. And that was one thing before I joined Flourish is that, okay, this is like one of the number one things I need to work on is being consistent with my pricing.
Mhm.
And now like it's consistent. I
Yeah.
send people consistent, I don't go in and raise and lower and raise and lower. Um, After a while, like you usually just feel it when it's time to raise your prices. So I will like raise them when I start getting that feeling. Um, but yeah, consistent pricing is one of the huge things I took away from that helped me in Flourish is just having consistent prices. And I have raised them. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. It's a huge win. Anything you want to tell photographers who might be considering about investing in themselves like this, or in Flourish and a mastermind, or even coming to the next Flourish retreat because you got to come to the retreat?
I would say if you're on the fence about it, then, I would do it because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what all you're going to learn or what all your eyes are going to be open to. And it's so beneficial having someone to bounce ideas off. Well, you have the whole group. And like I don't know if you know this, but the we all have our own like Voxer chat still that we like bounce
Oh,
ideas off of.
yeah. I love when I think this has happened every one of my masterminds because you were the fifth year. You were round five. I've done it five
Yeah,
times, and coming up will be round six. And it's like, I think every single group, they're still like, at least most of them are still in touch. And
yeah.
I love that.
Yes, everyone in the fifth round then of the mastermind, we all stay in touch and in Voxer and like bounce ideas off of each other or so that is so beneficial because I don't have any other like brand photographer people really that I know personally, and it's so helpful to just I don't know, that's so helpful.
Yeah,
What was the
you got like the community part,
yeah,
is huge as an entrepreneur to have like a community to lean on and people who get it. It's like there's been many times I wanted to like talk to my husband about something in business, and I do, and I talk to him all the time, but when it comes to like really getting advice and feedback, it's ideal if it's from like another business owner who gets it, because it's if you're not a business owner, you really don't get it. I'm sorry. You can try to get it, you
yeah,
can understand, but you don't. And to have a business owner friend that's like in who does what you do, who's a
yeah.
brand photographer who really gets it, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is so beneficial to have just that group, especially not even after the mastermind, but just during the mastermind, having those calls every week. And yeah, it's all so beneficial.
Love. Well, last question is what does it mean to you to flourish in your business and life?
Waking up happy every day about what I'm doing, not dreading Mondays, not, um, and obviously having some extra money to travel and do things that I want to do. And
And you manifested photo shoots in New York. How incredible.
yeah,
Because I know that's like
yeah.
so in alignment with what you love to do, which is travel.
Hmm. Yes, I want to start going to New York a lot more for shoots. So I'm gonna try to work on that.
Yes, get that SEO on point.
Yep.
Thank you so much. This has been awesome. I loved reconnecting with you, and thank you for just sharing openly about being a brand photographer and your experience in Flourish. Is where can our audience find you and follow you and connect with you?
So on Instagram, that's like the main social media platform I use. My handle is Enowski.branding.
We'll link your Instagram, and then they can also find your podcast through your Instagram as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Yep.
Girl.
Thank you.